All right. Today we have Monica O'Brien, a life coach with 15 years experience that I met in a Facebook group that was doing pretty much the same thing I was doing, making connections and meeting some new networking opportunities. So thank you for joining me today. Monica, how are you doing?
Hi, Sam. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing wonderful.
So good. So glad to hear it. So tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you do? What is a life coach per se in your definition?
Yeah, absolutely. What I would say my definition for a life coach is just really helping to guide somebody, where they're going in life. Sometimes, whether we have good friends or if we have family, sometimes it really helps when we get a clear perspective, someone who's just there to really like listen to help guide you, to help set goals, to really keep you accountable. So it can be helpful on so many different levels. For me, particularly, what I really focus on is is mindset coaching. Also, anything is I love anything with law of attraction, manifesting, also shifting perception. And the reason why I say this, Sam, is because, like you said, I've been practicing life coaching for 15 years. I really started at a young age where, I thought that I always kind of wanted to go into like counseling or therapy, but it was really a journey that I had taken in my own life and really put a lot of my own skills to work. And of course, the best way of learning sometimes is just having our own experience.
Mhm.
So really, it was me just constantly, applying different things in my life. And finally, I got to a place where I was then able to give back to a lot of other people who were finding themselves in the same struggles.
Yeah, no, that's really well put because I think one of the things that I really drew me to you when we first initially spoke was just getting to know you and your story because it had a lot of similarities within my story. We both seem to have suffered with a lot of anxiety and mental health issues type of thing. We both kind of went down the slippery slope of handling that very, very poorly, right? With bad coping mechanisms there. So if you're
Mhm.
open to it, I'd like to kind of pick your brain and take you down memory lane and talking about where the struggles were and how you were able to kind of transition into a person that seems to be really enjoying life as a mother and a wife, right? And a coach that gets to provide value to the world. So can we pick your brain a little bit on what that was like back then with all those struggles?
Yeah, gosh, absolutely. So, just to kind of put it in a nutshell, growing up, it was not a picture perfect scenario. I always do say though that things could have always been worse, right? So things could have always been better, and things could have always been worse. A lot of the time, where the healing comes from is when we, take our troubles or things that, and really put a positive twist onto them. So for me, that was always, even though my situation may have not been so positive, I chose to really look at the bright side. So when I do look at my past now, or when I look at those struggles, it was like, okay, well, they weren't perfect, but at the end, I did grow a lot, and they made me who I am. So, but yeah, my parents separated at a very young age. I switched a few homes before the age of 16. I was in three different schools before the time I graduated. And that just kind of, again, led me to like, being able to meet people easily. I was able to have relationships a little bit easier because I was used to being thrown in different situations. But then by the time I was 18 and, my mom had got remarried, I didn't want to be in that small town in Michigan anymore. So I decided I wanted to move 2,500 miles away. So here I was at the age of 18 years old, on the now living on the West Coast, and really just had no plan, had no job, had no idea what I was going to do, but just knew that I wanted something else. So that really started me out on a journey of being alone, figuring myself out. Kind of, I had a very, like a awesome spiritual awakening, but at the same time with that spiritual awakening came a responsibility that I didn't really feel at the young age. I wanted to take on. I really kind of wanted to stay young and have fun, which I believe for me ended up turning into my biggest temptation, which was drinking. So that was, that turned into my relationship. And I literally call it a relationship with alcohol and with drinking, because it was this very, it turned into a toxic relationship. And I just knew it was something that was not serving me in my life anymore. And that would take its run till I was about, 28 years old. And then once I had actually decided, you know what, this is no longer serving me, and I decided to get sober, I believe it was really in those next 5 years that it was a massive healing journey. So in the midst of everything, let's say in my first few years of being on my own, I was able to help a lot of people with being uncomfortable. I was able to help people in that chapter of my life that I had kind of overcome, being comfortable with myself and kind of like this whole self-confidence part. And then each chapter just kept unfolding to different journeys and to more healing, and to a place where I finally understood that I had to indeed heal myself first. And then I was able to create the life that I wanted. And that's where I talk about, like, I love law of attraction, the laws of the universe, because it's very true. I mean, once you are clear and you have a goal of where you want to go, it's very easy to then bring into your life. But there's a lot of underlining that kind of needs to be done in the process, a lot of tapping in. So that's kind of where I like to delve in with my clients to help get to that place.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the way that I didn't handle things also when I was going through like all the anxiety stuff, because we have a very similar upbringing, it seems like, and we have a separated parents at a younger age. I moved a lot when I was little, not out of state, but in the same relatively small radius of cities, right? But I also did go down that slope of alcoholism as well. And I think because we were trying to run away from trying to really tap into what we were trying to run away from, and we weren't solving it. We were kind of just avoiding the figuring out what is going on. We were just covering it up year after year, drink after drink, right? And I know for me, it was very difficult to really address it, because it's like acknowledging that the demons are there and bringing them out on purpose and saying hello and having a conversation with them to get them to go away. You're luring them out, and then you're saying, please go away. How was that entire process for you, and how long did that transition really take before you started to feel really comfortable with yourself?
What do you mean? Like, once I had decided about the quit drinking part, like how long did that take?
Right.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was definitely something that had been on my mind for a while. I knew that it was something, but it wasn't that easy, right? No, it wasn't something I was just like overnight. I was like, oh, I'm going to quit drinking and I'm fine. Absolutely not. It was definitely, I did say a lot of prayers. I was like, please God, help relieve this, obsession, from me. And actually, I think I had mentioned it to you a little bit, but it kind of makes me laugh, is that I was holding myself accountable to the limit of drinking that I could do. So I was like, okay, so I have to cut out liquor. Okay, that didn't work. And it was like, okay, so now I'm only allowed to drink wine. That didn't work. And then, now I can have beer, and I can only have like 2 beers on a weekend. So it got to a point where I was like, okay, if you can't even, listen to yourself and the rules that you set, then you're going to be cut off. And I got to a point where I was like, okay, well, I guess I abused it and I'm now cut off. So it was this own inner game that I played. And that's what I kind of realized with a lot of life. So like, even when we were discussing that anxiety, well, I realized I wasn't going to have that clutch anymore. So now what? What did I have to develop in absence of that? So for me personally, it was faith. And coming from like a faith background, not that I grew up with it, but I had my own, like I said, spiritual awakening at 19. I believe that definitely did help me, because I was able to give it up to a higher power
Mhm.
and ask for help along the way. But it
Right.
was also having, using tools that I knew that were going to help me. So it was whether that was like meditation, going for long walks, keeping myself out of situations or away from people who were engaging in things that I knew wasn't going to be good for me. So I did refrain myself to like go to a bar for a little while,
Mhm.
or to go to certain parties that I knew were going to be, with heavy drinking or something.
Yeah, yeah, and that's great. That's part of the hard, I think the hard truth is being able to say no, and that being like the thing that needs to happen. A little bit of sacrifice will go a very long way. By you saying no to bars, that's not you saying that I can't have fun, right? That's
No.
just saying I know myself. I can't
Hmm.
handle that right now. Now, if I were to ask you, Monica, let's all go to a bar and have a great dinner at a bar and grill. Would you feel uncomfortable going now?
Oh gosh, I was just at we were at the Nobu in Mountain, and we had to get up from our table, and we sat at the bar the whole rest of the night, and my friends are drinking champagne, and and I'm laughing, I'm sitting there drinking, tea, or I had a couple mocktails, but no, absolutely not. It doesn't. Nope.
Yeah, that's amazing. How long have you been sober now, by the way?
So 6 years.
6 years. Wow. And have you miss it? Do you miss it at times, or do you get cravings?
Yeah,
What
I
do
mean,
you do?
it's more of like this, okay, so that's a great question, because do I miss it? Like, sure. Like I said, it really helped me to put it in a perspective of like a relationship. So
Mhm.
like it was a bad relationship, right? It was a toxic relationship. Were there good times? Absolutely. Did the bad times outweigh the good times? Sure. So just like we can get caught up on like a lover who was, you know what I mean? That was like, of course there were going to be good times,
Right.
but so you can sit there and reminisce as much as you want about the good times, but what was the reality? And so
Mhm.
for me, it's really focusing on the reality, not getting caught up in the daydream of it, right? Because
Yeah.
that can sometimes get us into a little bit of, trouble.
Yeah, and then that brings up a memory of mine. I used to work with a guy. I think he's either just passed or coming up on 30 years of sobriety. And he was,
Wow.
he was involved with alcohol and drugs in the music scene. And I'm just listening to his stories. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm too scared to do drugs, right? So my
Yeah,
thing,
yeah, me too.
alcohol,
Drugs scared me.
yeah, I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it. And I'm listening to his stories like, man, he did everything and he loved everything, every drug, every alcohol. He didn't, everything was good and he loved it. And now he's sober and he's like, yeah, I think about it all the time. There's always new drinks, there's always new recipes. You guys have so
Mhm.
many things more available than I did when I was, 30 years ago. And he's like, yeah, but the only thing that I know about myself is that if I'm going to decide to have this drink, then I better be prepared to wake up in a ditch and lose my family, because
Yep.
that's where it would take him. Not to say that's extreme, that's a very extreme example, but it's just like going
Yep.
down that path of like what would happen if, So I feel like the clear-headedness that comes from not drinking. I'm not sober by any means, but I have significantly dropped down my drinking to maybe once every couple weeks, or one drink every couple weeks, something like that. But what I realized, maybe you can kind of clarify this for your own experiences too, but when I do not drink, I used to love alcohol too. Now I have the small bits of alcohol, and it really affects the way that I function, either the next day or whatever. But it's having that clear-headed ability to think and function and really work hard on our businesses, right? You get a lot more
Mhm.
done. Have you noticed a lot of other aspects of your life really kind of leveling up with the sobriety?
Oh yeah, I dropped like 20 pounds right away.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So like the sugar, because a lot of the sugar. And then but oh yes, I mean honestly, when I go out with a group of people and they were all drinking the night before, like I wake up and I'm like ready for the day, I'm bright and cheery, and I'm naturally a morning person anyways. But yeah, it's really funny to me because that's like what I do not miss. And I just wanted to share too is that ultimately with anything that we do, it's really just making a decision. So like, I made a decision. There was no like back and forth, black and white. Like it was just, I made a decision. And then once I make a decision, in order to follow through and be the best, make the best out of that decision, I'm going to do things that are in line with that decision. Right.
Right.
So it's not, you know, like I was kind of saying, it's not going to parties maybe right away, or it's not putting myself in certain positions, but the key thing is it's making a decision. So and it doesn't have to be a ton of pressure. Like we don't have to say, you know, even if it was like you make a decision that you're going to lose weight or stop eating meat or who knows, whatever it may be for somebody, but it's like, okay, you don't have to think about it that you're never going to be able to have this thing again. It's just like right now, you know what, I made a decision, like I'm not going to do that.
Right.
And having that discipline. So that goes with anything, you know.
Right, of course. I mean, the reality is, you know, the fear of missing out, right? That's a big thing. You know, that comes with everything, even just like,
oh yeah, mm-hmm.
Not even just with, you know, outing activities or events or hanging out with your friends, you know, it's also like we use that in a lot of marketing tactics also, you know, grab this sale before it ends, you know, there's like, I don't want to miss out, I'm going to go grab this thing, you know, same thing. And it's really important to kind of take a look at what you were just talking about too, is the alignment. Are your actions in alignment with what you want, with who you're trying to become? If not, then you really need to adjust either your goal and your overall being
or your habits. Yeah.
Habits, correct. Yeah. So I mean, I could talk to you about this all day long, but I really want to talk to you a little bit more about what you do for your for clients, for the world. How do you help somebody? What's the process usually look like when they work with you?
Yeah. So really I like to target in on this perception. So like any stories that you have, usually when we wake up in the morning, before we even get out of bed, there's, you know, some like to refer to it as like the monkey in the head, right? The monkey starts going.
Yeah.
And those can either be really great or they can be somewhat negative. I don't want to get up. What do I have to do today? Oh my God, I gotta let the dog out. You know, you'll catch yourself, even if you just, you know, you're paying attention. What are these stories that I'm waking up with? What am I paying attention to? And the goal really here is that you know, I want to be able to help to shift that perception. And maybe if that story isn't a good story, to change that story. Because yes, you can ultimately always change the story. Like I said, when I was younger and I could have let that get me down with like a lot of certain things about my childhood or just so many things. We all could. I mean, no one's life is perfect. But it's really like, what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on a place of like lack? Or are you focusing on a place of gratitude? So a lot of the times we're not even aware of the stories that are going on inside of our heads. So it's really tapping into that. So that's just one example, like where I kind of like to start from. And then also getting really clear about you know, where I do a little bit of work of like going in on, you know, on the spirit work, like who are you? You know, what makes you happy? What makes you shine? Like what brings you to life? You know, sometimes we can talk to people and ask them those questions and it's like, I don't know. It's hard to think of right off the top of your head. But it's so important to be aware of that. And then also just another one would be, you know, getting clear about where you're going. What are your goals? Are you consciously creating, or is life just, you know, are you just headed to an abyss? It's really setting those goals, having intentions, waking up with intentions. You know, what's the plan for like 6 months from now? Things can always change, of course, but at least there's a path that you're heading towards, goals that you want to achieve. And it's also thinking outside of the box. You know, it's getting big with those dreams and goals. It's I've been in positions where I had absolutely nothing, you know, where anybody would have looked and it was like, you know, hitting rock bottom and my life looking like it just crumbled before my eyes. And I learned my lesson then with, well, then I might, if I've got nothing to lose, I might as well, you know, dream really big. And that's when I learned that's when I learned that. So that's another thing that I work with as well.
Yeah, and that's really I think an important thing. as long as you're not aiming to make $1 million in the next 30 days, like unless you're already in an established place. But if you're a startup trying to make that much money, obviously set your expectations and your goals to be somewhat realistic, you know.
Well, I'll tell you the
Like,
trick with
you
that.
know,
I'll tell you the trick with that. So
yeah,
sometimes what it is that the truth is, it can be, you could, Sam, seriously, like you could really believe, truly believe that you could make $1 million in 30 days.
mhm,
And no, whatever you believe, nobody else can tell you is right or wrong. If you believe it,
right, mhm,
either you can or you can't, but it's up to you. But the truth is, of course, like a lot of people, if you were to tell them to that they could manifest $5,000 in the next week, they're not going to believe it. So that's where the key is. It's whatever you believe is possible. That's the
right.
key. Yeah.
I fully endorse what you just said, 100%. I mean, there was. Have you heard of that show? I talk about it all the time in other live trainings that I do. But what is it called? Undercover Billionaire. Have you heard of that
Okay.
show?
I have, but I haven't seen it.
That show really, if you're looking for a big kick in the butt, as far as, you know, watching someone work really hard to make $1 million company happen in 90 days in a brand new city, they don't know anybody, they have no contacts in their phone. And these are already existing billionaires. They're just taking away their name and they're throwing them into a random location where they don't know anybody. And all they have is like a car, a vehicle, a beat up car, whatever, and a
Uh,
phone, no contacts. So the challenge is making $1 million company happen in 90 days. Like an actual evaluator comes out. So I've seen it. I've seen them pull it off. I've seen, it's just watching that. It's like, yes, because they know they can do it. They believe themselves they can do it. And I fully believe that anything is possible. You know, I guess what I was trying to mostly say is, you know, if your goal was to make $1 million in 30 days, that's a pretty extravagant kind of goal, right? But if you made 500,000, you're halfway there. Wouldn't you still be happy with
yeah,
that?
of
That's
course.
500,000 more that you didn't have. So it's like you're setting the bar really high, but knowing that anything that happens below that, accept that, be okay with that. Doesn't mean you shouldn't aim for the stars, you know. So I love that you said that. You said something else. I'm trying to circle back into it. It was like point number 2 that you made with how you help how you help your clients, and I can't recall what it was.
Yeah, so I was talking about shifting the perception, the storytelling, getting clear,
Mhm.
not necessarily just kind of floating through life, but really having that, vision set for yourself, being comfortable with yourself, self-confidence, because
Yeah,
in the end, it really all does come down to self-love. The same thing, if you're creating something or if you're creating a life that you want, you're going to get it based on the way that you feel about yourself. So if
yeah,
you feel value and if you feel value within yourself, you're going to attract that value. But if for whatever reason you're not feeling deserving, right? Like if you're not feeling those sort of things,
right.
it's much more difficult to bring in. But I was going to say too about the millionaire statement was yeah, I mean we see it all over again where like a billionaire or a millionaire or something, they lose everything, right? They go bankrupt. But they'll do it all over again because they know how to. Why? Because they believe they can. It's like,
Right.
okay, well, I just lost everything, and then they'll get it all back. And it's like, how'd they do that?
Yeah,
Because they
we've
believe in themselves.
yeah, exactly. And once you have like that mindset, they're not filing for unemployment. They're not filing for bankruptcy necessarily. Maybe for a strategy purposes, maybe, yeah. But you know, when it's crazy to think that
Yeah.
people can just generate this income whenever they want, and the rest of us are
Right.
still trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? So I mean, once you start growing little by little by little, but it also comes down to what are you putting in? You know, like you
Hmm.
said, you know, you're going to get, you know, law of attraction, right? I fully believe that that's a thing because it brought us together and brought us to be able to network and connect with each other. And it just so happens that our stories like are pretty much a lot of similarities, right? It's just kind of funny how that
Yeah.
worked out. But what you put in is what you get out. If you are looking to grow a business, if you're looking to better your life, and again, in alignment, your actions and behaviors, if you're not doing those things, like owning a successful business, right? But you're not learning anything about business. You're not asking questions to grow your business. You're not trying to get clients. You're watching Netflix because a new series came out or something. doing too many things at once. I really don't believe that multitasking is something that someone should do. Funny enough, I had a coach or an aspiring coach or something. I don't know what it was. You ever get those messages on like Facebook that are like, hey, Monica, I saw that you're in the life coaching space. Do you need help finding more customers? Blah, blah. I'm sure you get those all day long,
Oh
right?
yeah. Uh-huh.
Someone just reached out to me. By the way, those that are doing that are doing it completely wrong. All of them, every single one. I might have seen one in the last 20 messages that might have been like, this is pretty good, but I'm good. Anyway, someone someone reached out to me and literally was saying, do you need help with this? And I'm usually polite and I'll say, no, thank you, I'm not interested. Um, and they were like, well, have you thought about multitasking? And I'm like, do you not know anything about multitasking? Like your area of, if I were to ask Monica to get really good at email marketing, if we're let's just keep in the realm of marketing for a second, right? If I was going to teach you or have you focus on email marketing and Facebook ads and Google ads, do you really think that you would become really good at any one of those things by focusing on all of them at the same time?
Absolutely
Probably
not.
right. So it's like I just was laughing about that. But again, back to the whole law of attraction thing. I really, really believe that people get what they I shouldn't say that because it sounds like a negative connotation behind it, but people get what they deserve. Right. If you are putting in the work, you think good things are going to come out if you just continue to do that. Right. And I'm sure
And
you've
again,
seen
it kind
a
of
lot of
starts with what we were saying, like that mindset. So
right.
it's for me, I feel
Mhm.
is the most important thing. It is the most important thing. But like I said, the way that you're perceiving things, are you perceiving things like everything's working out for you and you're looking for opportunities? That's same thing as where it's setting in your mindset. But if you're like rattled, if you're multitasking, if you're like, oh my God, and you're freaking out and you're not in alignment, like you said, it's not going to attract to you. And it's just, I mean, we could literally talk about it with every single thing from your business to your relationship, the type of friends that you have.
Yep.
Everything in your life is just a reflection from what's going on in the inside. So the
Yeah.
key thing is to really tap. A lot of people are so busy on the external and the doing, do, check off the list, and they're not paying attention to what's going on the inside.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's where it's really happening, you know? So
And that's something that I think you and I can agree on because we went through our own personal journey of ignoring that for so long. To the point where once we got an ounce and a glimpse of what it looks like to really address what we are internally struggling with, we like went full force and worked really hard to become, where we're at today, healthy and looking forward, optimistic business owners, coaches, whatever it is that you're looking to do, you have to really start within. I think that's the power of mindset. So it just really drew me to have more conversation with you. And I'm really happy that you're here with me today because mindset is one of those things. Again, people don't really think, I have a mindset issue. I have a really big mindset issue. What do they say instead? What would you say that they say to themselves instead?
well, it's a lot of blame. So the first thing too is like you have to take responsibility, because once you take responsibility, then you
Yeah.
can change anything. The ball's in your court, you have the power. But as
Mhm.
soon as you start blaming it on circumstances or your boss or your relationship or your kids or anything external, then you give your power away, because
Mhm.
then you're saying, well, there's nothing I can do about it because it's all with them. So it's very easy as humans, like for us to to put the blame on someone else. It takes away. But the key is you really want to take responsibility for everything in your life, because
Yeah.
then you can really say, okay, now I have the power to change that.
Right. And that I think is a huge quality to becoming a leader. And if being a business owner is something that suits you, right, you need to grasp this concept that everything is your fault. You are responsible,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because who else is going to take responsibility? You can't say my employees are just terrible. No, that's bad leadership that reflects on you.
Yeah.
And that's something that really most entrepreneurs will not teach the concept of mindset. They might sprinkle it in there a tiny bit. Here's how to build a website in 30 days or less or whatever. But also there's mindset behind that too with everything that we
Or
do, right?
just like think positive. Like that's such
Right.
a
Yeah.
cliche. It's not about thinking positive, because there's so much more in your subconscious that you can't just be like, oh, I'm going to think positive, because you have your subconscious, which has already been programmed. And it's
Right.
like, if you're not really seeing things in the right way or taking responsibility, it's not
Mhm.
going to work. Right.
I agree. And I actually created, I think I did a YouTube video on why thinking negatively can actually benefit you. So
Mhm.
it's like, if you're always forced to think positive, that's so stressful. We're not built that way. We
No.
our main reaction, I really think, that is to react how we really truly feel. We're not going
Mhm.
to hit our toe on the bedpost and think, oh, I'm so thankful for today. No, you're going to start, blurring out or busting out, curse words and everything, right? Because it hurts. We're
Yeah,
not,
of course.
that's our reaction. When things go wrong, we react accordingly, but it's what you do with them. It's what you, how you, okay, don't sit in it, but what do you do after that? I stubbed my toe. Okay, great. I probably should grab a bag of ice. Okay, got it. It's not that bad. It's not bleeding. My nail's still there. Whatever, things
Exactly.
can
Yep.
go quickly down the positive route. That might be a weird example to put out there, but just the first thing that
No,
came to
I know exactly what you mean. And funny enough too, like you reminded me by like saying that too, it works the same thing with fear.
mind.
So like a lot of the times we're told like fear, like, oh, it's such a bad thing. Like don't fear and love. Like, of course, like, yes, of course, like everything is love. Again, we're human, right? Like you can't just automatically like get rid of fear.
Yeah.
It's in us. But fear can also be a good thing. I mean, fear can be, a lot of the times what we're really fearful of is something coming up for us saying that like, hey, we need to deal with this. This is something that I need to address. A
Right.
lot of the times, to be honest, like on the other side of fear were really massive, awesome like changes or something that was trying to come into my life, but I was
Mhm.
so fearful of it. And now I know that it's like, if I'm so fearful of something and I face it, I'm now like, wow, what's on the other side of that fear? It must be
Right.
really good, because
Right.
that's where the growth is. And so it works the same way as fear too.
Yeah, I agree. I think have you not pushed through the fear of, you know, bettering your life and quitting alcohol once and for all, and making the
Oh,
decision
that
to
was fear. That was terrifying.
yeah,
My life.
everything that
Oh
I
my
did,
God. Like, what am I going to do? You know what I
right.
mean? You're like,
My life is over. My whole thing is going to
as I
change.
know
Yeah,
it, it's like, oh my
we
God,
are
who's going to
exactly.
want to date me?
No one likes people, sober people. Nobody
Right?
likes.
Nobody.
I'm just kidding. No, I totally get it. For me, I was always like, no one likes anxious people, and I had a severe anxiety also, and it just wasn't pleasant to be around, because I always wanted to leave the second we got somewhere. I always wanted to leave. But I was just thinking about, oh shoot, I lost my train of thought again. What did you
That's
said
okay.
something again.
I
That
was
was
gonna I was gonna say something too, like just a note for like anxiety. So like anytime we have anytime that we're anxious is usually because we're in the future, right?
right,
So
right.
just wanted to like just share that like tidbit a little bit. Like so I would start slow, right? I would start with just little tiny steps and be like, okay, so whenever I found myself being extremely anxious, I was like, what am I thinking about? Take a
Mhm.
deep breath. And I was
Yep.
very gentle with myself. So even if I was like, okay, Monica, just sit down, where just sit down. Is everything okay? A lot of times it's just being really gentle with ourselves. We can throw ourselves into such like situations where if
Right.
we just, like I said, take that deep breath, sit down, ask yourself, check in, is everything okay? Yeah, my family's okay, nothing's going crazy, my house isn't burning down. Yep, I'm good.
The gratitude route. Yeah.
Yeah, that like start focusing on the gratitude, start being like, okay, my body works, my legs work, I have a job to go to, I have a car to get there, I have my family coming, like just, I mean, we could, right, there's a huge list of things that we can be ultimately be thankful for, but it's really connecting back into the present moment. When you're anxious, like you said, if you're going into a party, you're in your head thinking, oh, everyone's going to judge me, I'm not going to know anybody, you're already putting yourself, and you have no idea what to expect, you're just
Mhm.
projecting,
Right.
instead
Yeah.
of just being like, okay, this is going to be cool, I'll roll with it. If it's that bad, I can leave. No
Yeah.
big deal.
And that's what I had to really kind of weigh out, when I was going through therapy. It was when I first started therapy, I should say, but it was very, what's the worst that could happen? Am I okay with that happening? Yes. So if
Yeah.
I, for example, went to a party and I wanted to go home, okay, a couple of friends might be pissed off that I wanted to go home. No big deal. Okay, they'll get over it. It's not the end of the world. I still have friends, and then I had to be okay with those consequences if I chose that route, and what I was going to say was what brought me back into the therapy space was, bringing all of those things that I was really afraid of to just did not make me want to go to therapy at all. So the thought of sitting there and talking about it. But I remember my first handful of sessions with my therapist, I was so uncomfortable that I refused to settle in, and I actually stood while she sat in the office for an hour. Our hour sessions were just me standing there watching and then listening and talking and looking out the window and looking around because I was just so anxious, But I was going to say you have to really, going back to the fear thing, you really have to for what you were saying about your clients, getting to know them where they're at. I know there's a huge difference between therapists and coaches, right? Therapy is obviously in the past, coaches is more direct towards the future, but you have to understand that as coaches, people don't understand that we do not do like therapy work. We do not, address your anxiety or your depression or anything like that. We talk about where you're at currently so we can, give you the keys to the car and start driving forward. And sooner or later, all the things in the background, the rearview mirror, all those little details, that building, your house, the driveway, it's gonna get smaller and smaller and smaller. Not that you're leaving home, but just, all the stuff that you're leaving behind you is something that we need to understand where you're at. So but I often can see that being confusing for clients because like, well, is this a therapy session or is this a coaching session? Like, well, we need to understand who you are and what makes you you so we can help you, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. A lot of the times what I'll usually do is, yeah, I definitely want to tap into it, not too much. Cause like you said, yes, with therapy, you're going to sit in sessions and you're going to unravel certain situations like from your past, whatever. Like I said, when I was young, I'm grateful for what I went through because it made me me. So usually it would be something more along the lines of what life experiences did you have that you felt were very compelling that like still stick with you today. But like I said, that's kind of like where the stories come in. So a lot of the times, even into our lives, you'll hear people that are 40, 50, 60, and they're still telling the same story. And it's from years ago. It's from the past. And I don't know about you, but personally for me is like the past, good, bad, whatever. It is what it is. It's in the past. I like to just stay more focused on the present. So on the present and on the future, because it's like I learned from that, take what resonated with me and move forward. But I think it's very liberating, I feel, to like be able to let go and not be so attached
Yeah.
to what that was, because and the reality of it is it's over. I mean, it is, but there's so much more to look forward to, you
Right.
know? There's
Yeah.
so much more to look forward to. So yeah, I mean, it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you want to, work out things from your past, then yes, of course, I would definitely recommend a therapist. But if you're now in the spot where you're at now, where you can do something, and that's the difference. Now you can do something about it.
Right.
You're in the driver's seat, and you have the power right now.
Exactly. And as I'm hearing you say this, I couldn't help but think about, like you said, when the past is over, but we're still carrying that with us. If we think
Yeah.
about a physical wound that hurt really bad at one point, and then it stops hurting a little less and less and less and less as the body goes on and heals. Now we're left with a scar. Does that scar still hurt? Or is that in the past? Don't let the scars hurt us. The past is the past. Like the past wounds that were once hurting us, we can move through that. It doesn't mean there's not going to leave a scar as a memory. We'll remember what that was like because you and I can recall without flipping out into anxiety, right? Thinking about how bad our anxiety was and how bad the coping mechanisms were. But it's still a scar. It's still there because that helped us make us who we are, right? And then we're not
What's
carrying that
interesting?
pain.
But what's interesting is our brains are actually designed to help us. So like, let's say,
Right.
we went through something traumatic or something happened, like we'll only remember for so long. So actually if you think about even like your past and you can remember like that something traumatic that happened or something that really bad that happened, but ironically, like the really great things, they tend to trump it. Like you have to really think about those bad feelings because, well, unless you've now programmed yourself to think about the good things. So it's about really letting it go. And I said earlier, I was like, when you bring healing into a past, you know, something that was bad in your past, but you can shine a positive aspect on it, that's where the healing begins. So like, for example, when I went through, you know, a bad relationship, you know, it was very narcissistic. It was a terrible time in my life, but I've decided, because I can make the decisions in my life, right? I'm the one in control. I've decided, whether nobody can tell me if I'm right or wrong, that I was grateful for that relationship because it was that very relationship that was the catalyst that I needed in my life to propel me to where I needed to be in the relationship that I needed to be, because it was a contrast. And I decided, you know what? I don't like this and I don't want this. This is what I want. But it was so intense. It was such an intense catalyst for me. So now I look back at that in gratitude. I'm grateful for that relationship because it got me to where I needed to be even faster.
Yeah, it's like the Wayne Dyer quote, right? When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yes. And I
It's
love
all
him. He's the
perspective.
best.
That's such a great perspective and a great way of wrapping it up with how and packaging it the way exactly how you put it right now. It's looking back thinking, yeah, this, you know, piece of crap person and all that, like this is what I deserve. You know, letting it affect you. You were like, no, I don't want that. I don't want that anymore. I'm gonna go after this side. And that's a beautiful thing.
That's the
Um,
key. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. Monica, I can talk with you all day long, but where can we find
Yeah.
you? Where can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, so just go ahead and like I said, you'll be able to check out a little bit more of me on Monica Lynn 85. So that's on my Instagram account. Feel free to send me a message, and yeah, I'd love to connect. And yeah, it's so good talking to you, Sam. Thanks for reaching out and having this conversation.
Of
I'll
course.
definitely be talking to you soon and in the future. So, but yeah, this
Yeah,
was awesome. Thank you.
yeah, thank you for being here. I had a blast as always. We'll have to do this again on a different subject and watch each other grow together. So I'll talk with you very soon, Monica. Thank you so much for being here again. Talk to you
Okay,
soon.
thank you. Okay, bye, Sam. Thanks.